Hi there, and welcome to this English revision video for the poem Memories by Trilokesh Mukherjee. It will provide you with a summary of its main features and hopefully make writing an exam answer much easier for you. You may find it helpful to have a copy of the poem in front of you during the video. We'll begin with an overview of the poet. Trilokesh Mukherjee was born in India in 1938, and he had a humble upbringing, which is reflected in his childhood memories in this poem. It is clear that both Indian and Hindu culture are central to his poetry, and in the case of this poem, as the title suggests, he is concerned with the importance of memories and their role and function in our lives. India is a very, very large, very heavily populated country in South Asia. Poverty is widespread. Hindu religion, mythology and family are all very important to Indian people, and these ideas are clear through a reading of memories. The poem describes the poet's memories of mealtimes around an open fire with other children of his community. After dinner, his grandmother would tell them all stories from Hindu culture. The main points to consider include the references to mythology, the way the setting is established through figurative language and sensory language. The tone of the poem will be analysed by looking at how different emotions are elicited through the language used. We'll look at the poem's message and try to establish what the poem is saying about memories. Finally, we will summarise the main uses of language and look at the structure of the poem. As always, cultural references should be included in any exam answer in response to this poem, and this commentary includes these for you throughout. Hindu mythology is a huge part of Indian culture. Much of it comes from stories and narratives written in Sanskrit, and it's embedded in the Hindu religion. References to it can be found working at all levels of Indian society, from children's stories to films made in Bollywood, the Indian film industry. You can see here pictures of the 4 characters from Hindu mythology which are mentioned in the poem. When researching this, it was very difficult to find these images due to the variety of spellings in the names. This might indicate the way the stories can change over time as they are passed on generation by generation through written and spoken storytelling, as is the case in this poem. The poet clearly remembers the scene, and he works hard to make sure his reader experiences it too. This is achieved through sensory and figurative language. It is evening or night time, and this is made obvious by night owls and dark canvas, the latter suggesting some kind of grand and black canvas on which he can almost paint his scene. Members of the local community, or his wider family, are enjoying a communal meal, the meal shared with all the children. The poet wants us to know that everyone was included. There is a sense of solidarity and togetherness in this community. Next, we are literally bombarded by sensory language, notably what we can smell, hear and see. First, the smells. We smelled the smoke of the fire. Notice the alliteration here, smelled and smoke, which is designed to give a sense of comfort. We can also smell the food being cooked, and the rice, again intended to make the reader feel relaxed and comforted. Secondly, Mukherjee focuses on visual language and brings his nighttime painting to life. Glowworms added golden fireworks sparks on the dark canvas. As you can see here, the poet wants us to imagine a metaphorical fireworks show created by the glowworms, and he suggests that they are some kind of spectacular painting on the canvas of the night. Thirdly, we get an idea of what we can hear. In only 2 lines, the poet uses 3 examples of onomatopoeia: the untiring chirping of the crickets and nightjars, the hooting of the night owls, the howling of distant jackals. Notice there are also 4 forms of wildlife mentioned here too. It is like the sounds of the animals form some kind of nighttime orchestra, and they play to those sat around the fire. The other sound mentioned is his grandmother's reassuring voice, perhaps most importantly, and this conveys a feeling of relaxation and security. There are many layers of tone in the poem. There is the fascination of the child poet and his companions, the stories heard again and again. It doesn't seem to matter to them how many times the grandmother repeats the stories to them. They want to hear them another time. There is an excitement as they sit and listen. And then grandma. Notice the exclamation mark here as they implore her to continue. Even in their dreams, the stories continue, showing that they've fallen asleep with the stories going through their minds. We met the heroes and the heroines. The poet is proud of his culture. Notice the 2 adjectives he uses when mentioning some of the characters: valiant Bhima, wonderful Bhishma. They are words full of admiration and pride. Towards the end of the poem, the reader can recognise the bereavement felt by the poet because grandmother is no more, a short, stark sentence. Despite this, he says, "I can still hear her voice," which shows the power of his memories. The phrase, "our lost lives," is a metaphor which laments his distant childhood. It's not really lost, but it's in the past and exists only now in his memory. There is also comfort in his memories. I need only shut my eyes to hear the whispering. Even though she's gone, he can feel more positive if he thinks back and remembers the scene in the poem and other evenings like it. The poem's message is a simple one and expresses the importance and power of memories. That's what the memories are about. Suggests this poet uses his memories as a way of providing comfort even during adulthood. Memories endure forever, and they remind you of what is important to your culture and in your life. Even simple memories such as this description of storytelling after a meal can provide a feeling of security years later. Let's finish by summarising the main linguistic and structural features, some of which you could mention in an exam answer. Like most of the pre-release booklet poems, it's written in free verse, which means there is no regular rhyme scheme or rhythm. Mukherjee's poem is written instead like an autobiography, because it contains personal memories and it narrates a story, perhaps a reference to the storytelling theme of the poem. The use of the first person emphasises it as a personal poem and again reinforces the importance of memories into the poem. We've mentioned the sense of community in the poem already, and this is also built up through the use of the first person plural. The pronouns our, we, us throughout the poem increase the feeling of community, which, as we know, is very important to Indian people. And there is the sensory language, the use of words which refer to sight and sound and smell, create images and sounds in the mind of the reader to make us feel like we're actually there. Chirping, howling and hooting are all examples of onomatopoeia, which of course is words which sound like the noise they're describing. And there are two nice metaphors which set the scene: golden fireworks sparks and dark canvas. Interestingly, the poet uses two examples of an ellipsis in this poem. The first one indicates the passing of time, the rice boiled over, the hot earthen oven, ellipsis, much later, after the meal. The words much later show that time has passed since the meal was eaten. The second has a very different effect and comes before the children's excited cries of, "and then grandma." This is probably a nod to the storytelling skills of his grandmother, as if she has paused during the story to keep her listeners in suspense, so much so that they beg her to carry on. There was also a brief use of assonance, which is like alliteration but with vowel sounds. The food being cooked contains two long vowel sounds which slow down the pace of the poem to create a feeling of relaxation and tranquility. Sibilance is used in the final 5 lines to convey the comfort of the memories about his grandmother and her stories. The S sound might also represent the whispering of his grandmother. The poet can almost hear her whispering the stories to him from the past, which gives the memories and her stories a sense of age and history. Finally, the last line gets a stanza to itself and stands alone to emphasise its importance. That's what the memories are about. Hope you found this video useful. As always, please leave constructive comments on its page on YouTube if you want to tell us what you think, and don't forget to keep checking the PortchesterSchool YouTube channel for more revision videos to help you improve for your English exams. Best of luck.